Now, the great writer Somerset Maugham said, "There are 3 simple rules for writing a great novel. Sadly, no one knows what they are." But I disagree with that. I think we can learn writing. We can formulate rules. We can approach writing the way we approach anything else in life. And I'm going to tell you now, in roughly chronological order, the approach I take to crafting my stories and novels. But I have 2 caveats before I launch into my course. The first is that I'm speaking exclusively of the type of novel I write, genre crime fiction. But having said that, I think these rules could apply, frankly, to any construct of a novel. And to be completely honest with you, and as long as this is not being videotaped by 3 cameras back there and will be on YouTube instantly, I can say I think there are probably a lot of novels that would have benefited from this sort of approach. Okay, that's my first caveat. I'm speaking of genre commercial fiction at this point. Rule 1. Rule 2, everything I tell you tonight could be absolutely, completely wrong. Why? Because there's nothing more subjective than writing. What works for you works. Always remember that. Well, having said that and done my legal disclaimer, because I was an attorney for some years, albeit not a particularly good one, let's get down to work. Pull out your Big Chief tablets and those crayons. And I can judge the age of people because some of you know what a Big Chief tablet actually was. All right, now again, we're going to go through as I say, the roughly chronological steps of putting together a novel. And our first overarching rule is this: it's a business. It's a business. It's not art. You may want to write something for yourself and look at it in the privacy of your own room, and that's absolutely fine. But from my perspective, the only thing I write that is not for publication, i.e. that I do not get paid for, is a laundry list or a grocery list. I want to put something out there in public and be rewarded for it. I often volunteer my time, but there's still a benefit for that. I'll do for international thriller writers. I donate stories and things like that. That's different though. If we're writing, we are writing for the audience. And I'm going to run through now what's always in the back of my mind when I sit down to write. It's a business. A book is a product. It's like a car. I'm part of the manufacturing team, just like at Procter & Gamble or Ford. That means, for instance, that I'm not a prima donna if my publisher or if Barnes & Noble or if Amazon has problems with a title that I think is the best title in the world, and they say, you know, we think there's going to be a little problem with us selling the book into the bookstore and the bookstore selling out, I'll listen to that. My wonderful editor is here tonight, so dare I say, never miss a deadline. Do you think you go to CVS and you go to the, you need an insole for your shoe, and you say to CVS, I need an insole. You look at the Dr. Scholl's area and it's empty. They say, well, you know, the Dr. Scholl was not inspired this week. He's going to get around to it at some point. That doesn't work. Why should a book be any different? You produce a product regularly. I write once a year, at least once a year, often twice a year. That's a little obsessive because I don't have much of a life other than writing. But you need to get the product out there. We have a lot of serious competition nowadays. Have you heard of Angry Birds? Have you heard of Honey Boo Boo? Those are all stealing readers' attention away from our stories. And we have to make sure there is a, and I'll say it again and again and again, a product out there for them. Now, when I say product, that's not disparaging. It's a product I'm very proud of, but I like to think that the Procter & Gamble people are proud of what they make because it serves a function. You know, I think of the great artists, you know, Rembrandt, Shakespeare, Beethoven. Well, you know what? They worked on commission. They created products too. And I think their willingness to be mature business people enhances their art. I don't think it diminishes it. All right, so what we're going to do tonight now, if you're all sitting down and ready for this, is we're going to write a book. And again, I thought this would kind of help to structure how I put together all these various elements in crafting a book. So let's say, and we're going to just pick an arbitrary time, again, do a book a year. June 1st is my deadline for delivery. I just delivered a book, and I'm doing what all authors do, as some of you authors here do. You know, the private jet flies us to Aruba or wherever, and you know, we're lying on the beach and they're feeding us grapes and those drinks with the little umbrellas in them. And my I used to say BlackBerry alarm goes off, but pretty soon we're not going to know what a BlackBerry is. My iPhone alarm goes off, and I think, oh no, I have a year to write a book. So that's the end of the vacation. I jump in the private helicopter, fly back home. The private limo picks me up and takes me home. And now it's time to get down to work. Well, okay, so this is all framing the concept. It's a business. Now the deadline is approaching, bang, I've got a year to write a book. I'm back home at my desk. And now, point number two, one, it's a business. Number two, if it's a business, I need a business model, right? All companies have business models. I know many of you, as I was, are involved in the business world as well as the creative arts. So we need a business model, and I indeed have a business model that informs how I produce my product, and it is this. It is the mint-flavored business model, toothpaste business model. And I'm going to illustrate what I mean by that. I mentioned Procter & Gamble. So I am now not an author, I'm a product designer at Procter & Gamble. And I go to my boss and I say, Fred, I've got an idea for a new product, and this is going to put us on the map. We haven't had a lot of press lately, but this is going to put us on the map. And Fred says, okay, Jeff, what is your idea? I say, I went to this great restaurant last night and I had pate. It's just wonderful. And I got to thinking, why don't we make liver-flavored toothpaste? I think it would be great. It would get us press. It would make a name for us. And Fred looks at me and he says, let me think. Jeff, I have two questions. The first is this a product for cats and dogs? Because that's rather clever. Dental hygiene is important for our pets. Just remember that. And I say, no, Fred, it's for people. And Fred then says, my second question, is your resume in order? And he then goes on to say, people don't want liver-flavored toothpaste, Jeff. They want mint-flavored toothpaste. Why should a book be any different? I'm very skeptical, and I've heard this not on too many occasions, but with enough frequency to make me concerned. When an author says, I've got an idea, and it excites me. I don't care about the readership. I don't care about the audience. It could be structurally bizarre. It could be written in a style or filled with foreign words or esoteric phrases that really is not about them. If they have to carry around a dictionary to read my book, that's their problem. No, people pay us a lot of money, and more importantly nowadays, spend a great deal of time invested in our books. We give them what they want. Every time I sit down to write a book, I don't care if I have the greatest idea in the world, to me, something that I think would be good, is my audience. Are my readers going to enjoy that book? And I mean enjoy it. Are they going to get their palms sweaty? Are they going to laugh? Are they going to look forward to picking it up? That comes about by thinking about what they want. Now, I should add, I'm not talking about selling out to the masses. Look at some, what I would call less accessible writers. Some of the writings of Ian McEwan, Donald Barthelme, I characterize it as New Yorker fiction. I do subscribe to the New Yorker, it's my favorite magazine. Some can be a bit experimental and difficult. However, Donald Barthelme wrote for maybe that 6,000 people audience in the United States. He gave them mint-flavored toothpaste. That, to me, his fiction might be like Tom's, that baking soda stuff that's really good. I think it's disgusting. But now, again, what was my first caveat? I'm talking about genre crime fiction. In that particular field, what makes mint-flavored toothpaste? It's easy to say, give audiences what they want, but what makes that? And I'll give you just some examples. I want my book to move like lightning. I want it to be read in one sitting. Mickey Spillane said people don't read books to get to the middle. We read books to get to the end. We expect the author to have the wherewithal and the energy and the foresight to grab us by the lapels in the first chapter. I'll say, in my advanced years, I don't give it a chapter anymore. If you don't have me in the first 2 pages, I'm suspecting you're not going to have me at any other point in the book. So I need to be emotionally grabbed right away. And I don't mean a car chase or a scene of violence. I need conflict. I need something right up front that's going to drag me into that story and keep me going. Okay, I want the book to move like lightning. That's mint flavored toothpaste. I don't want digression. Let's talk about sex. I usually look out in the audience and make sure I don't think there's an inappropriate audience here. Right. I was on book tour in, I think it was South Africa or Europe, and this attractive young woman came up to me at the signing and said, "Mr. Deaver, what about sex?" And I said, "I don't have time now." But I'm staying at XYZ Hotel. Okay, I was blushing more than she was, and she said, "Oh no, I don't mean that." And I said, "I know, you mean in my books." And I said, "I'll tell you why. Because of the first mint toothpaste thing I just described, the book moving like lightning, well, is sex an integral part of the story, or is it gratuitous? And in my books, and the books that I tend to favor, there's no time. We would think less of the hero if he said, "Hold on, I know they're after me, I know they're in the next room, but come on, babe." And in writing the James Bond novel, now James Bond is James Bond, of course, and there was a certain element we had to work that in, but it was an integral part of the story, and it didn't take too long either to write. But that's a very rare occurrence in my sort of book. But we don't digress. What was the Last of the Mohicans? Okay, you read the first page. Okay, this is looking good. Oh, this is exciting. We've got Native Americans, we've got the French, we've got the British, we've got the Americans, tomahawks flying, kidnaps going on, and then, bang, chapter 2. Now, dear reader, let us consider the founding of this wonderful continent. It's like Michener for 40 pages, on and on and on and on. Get back to the kidnapping. Digression. Don't do it. My research, I do a huge amount of research of the book I'm researching right now for next year, my 2014 book. I probably have at this point 1,000 pages of notes, and I've just started the research material. I will use a fifth of that because I don't want the story to slow down. What's interesting to me may not be interesting to you. I'll distill it. We don't digress. I don't want any give me a break moments. That's liver flavored toothpaste. If my hero's cell phone doesn't work, it's not because there's no reception. It's not because there's no reception. It's because the villain has somehow cleverly gotten into his phone or disrupted the cell tower. That's a legitimate reason. The readers can then understand, oh, okay, I see now why that works. It's not, oh, what a coincidence. I don't want any unresolved subplots. I have usually five or six subplots going on in each book of mine. The main core plot, the soap opera kind of plot, which is always fun, the personal relationship stuff, maybe some geopolitical plots, but they all have to be resolved one way or the other. I don't like ambiguous endings. It's kind of the vogue in European, especially Scandinavian writing now. I just don't like that. I want to know what happened. I want to know, it doesn't have to be a good ending or a bad ending. That reminds me of one of my favorite literary philosophers, Homer Simpson. He said, was it Madge or Marge? I don't know, I haven't seen the show for a long time. But his wife, gee, I don't know, is this a happy ending or is it a sad ending? She said, it doesn't matter, Homer, it's an ending. And I believe it. You know, you can cry at the end of a book or you can laugh, but it doesn't matter. We have to have resolution, conflict in resolution. That's what it's all about. Okay, so now we have rule 1, it's a business. Rule 2, our business model is mint toothpaste. Now, we of course have to have a mint idea to write about. I was on a panel in England, and this is some years ago, and the subject came up, where do you get your ideas? And the woman sitting next to me wrote cozies, and you know what cozies are, the lighter Agatha Christie kind of books, great fun. I used to say that Janet Ivanovich was a cozy writer until I read the part where Grandma Mazur took out a .45 Colt and blew somebody away. Do you know Grandma Missouri? Does anybody read Janet Ivanich? I know that's kind of, we can all admit it. I love Grandma Missouri, she's great. But you get the idea, cozy novel, parlor, you know, the rector dead behind the church, that kind of thing. Well, she said, where do I get my ideas? I'll tell you. I sit down in my parlor with a cup of tea, and I wait for my muse, whose name was Frederica or Philomena, something like that, to tap me on the head, and poof, there's my book. There's my idea. And I started to laugh. But the audience, they take their muses real seriously over in the UK. And so I turned it into a cough, you know. And everybody's applauding. You know, we've all seen Tony Blair and Cameron Diaz. Yeah, they love the muse. So then the question comes to me. And, you know, in this day of YouTube, I'm on records. I've done this before, so they know I can't fudge it. So the question came to me, and I said, well, I sit down, and we don't have parlors in America. It's my living room with a beverage. It's not tea, and then I simply spend hours trying to come up with some idea that will scare the ever-living hell out of you. Jonathan was mentioning book club. You get into a taxi cab and the doors don't work, and you go someplace else. I look for ideas everywhere, but it has to be mint. It has to be the idea that will allow me to write the sort of book that I do, one that moves very quickly and will allow me to have lots of reversals internally and then have, at the end, a big surprise ending, followed by a big surprise ending, and after that, a big surprise ending, because that's what I enjoy doing. All right, now, time to get to work. We're going to write our book, and I'm going to move right along here quickly. We mentioned the Bone Collector. Thank you very much. We can segue into this. I was reading in the New York Times not too long ago an article about healthy bones, vitamin D, calcium, and so forth. And I learned that there are 206 bones in the human body. I wrote The Bone Collector. Here's an idea. 206 chapters in the book, each one named after a bone. You think, well, that's a lot of chapters. Read James Patterson lately? Oh, oops, the cameras are going. Okay, Jim, it's all right. My chapters actually have gotten a lot shorter too as we compete with Angry Birds and Honey Boo Boo. Attention span, it's just the reality of it. But here's the idea. We're in a medical center, like Bellevue or someplace, or Columbia Presbyterian, and a skeleton disappears. The killer steals it and takes the skeleton apart and hides a bone as an announcement for a killing. And our detective has to get on the case and find the killer. Okay, well, sounds pretty good to me. I'm excited about this. So it's, you know, the clock's ticking. We don't have a lot of time. Sit down, time to write the book, right? Here we go, we're gonna write the book, right? No, and I'm gonna tell you why. Let's say, okay, who was the toothpaste guy? Fred, my boss. Okay, no. Now we got Joe. I call up Joe, who runs an airplane store, and I say, Joe, this is Jeff. I've decided to give up writing, and I'm going to start building airplanes now. By the way, that part where I said I was going to give up writing was met with a rather tepid response, so I'm going to try that again. I've decided to give up writing. Oh, okay, it's just a hypothetical. Don't worry. I call Joe and I say, Joe, I'm going to build airplanes. I want you to deliver me a whole bunch of airplane stuff. And well, I don't know, you're the airplane guy. I need wings. I need ailerons. I don't know what they are, but I think I need them. And I want those video games that the pilots play up in the cockpit. and you know those air masks that come down? And I don't care. I want my bags to inflate. Because they say the bags may not inflate. Don't they know the bag's going to inflate or not? It's their airplane. I want mine to definitely inflate. And so he delivers all this stuff and puts it in my front yard, and I put on a hard hat and I take a torch and wrench and everything, and I start, well, let's see, what should I do? I'll put the wings here, that's good. They need to come out of that fuselage thing, and I'm going to put the engines on top. I'll try that, see how that, we don't see that very often. I'll do that. And the tail. You know, don't we feel sorry for the tail? It's always in the end. It always gets there last. I'm putting my tail in the front of the airplane. So I see how that goes. Well, would you get on an airplane that I have built? No way in hell. Why should you read a book that has been written that way? I outline. I get on airplanes that have been built according to very elaborate engineering diagrams. I do not write a book until I have done an engineering diagram for that book. Now, I admit I am obsessive, and the world is divided into two camps, those who outline and those who don't. I am comfortable outlining. I write a multi-plotted story over a very compressed time frame with lots of clues in it, and I need to know where all those clues appear. I need to know the structure of the story before I write it. I spent 8 months outlining, full-time job, and doing research too. And what we're going to do now is go through the outlining process for our wonderful book, The 206 Bones. It's a good title. We'll use that, The 206 Bones. Okay, now it's June 1st. Remember, we've got all this. 1, it's a business. 2, mint-flavored toothpaste is our model. 3, we've come up with an idea that sounds pretty good. Number 4, we need to do an outline. We need to structure it. So day 1, here's the outline. Chapters named after bones. Detective saves the day. That's it. Well, don't panic, because we've got a year to flesh this out. The next week, the outline grows a bit. Skeleton disappears from medical center, bones are found, a murder occurs, and then the hero cop gets on the case, and then we look down, and the next line is middle of book. Bunch of stuff happens. And then down at the bottom, end of book. Big surprise ending. And we don't know what it is yet, but it doesn't matter. We've still got we've got months to go. So we work on it for a whole month. Now the outline is 30 or 40 pages long, and these are some of the headings. Skeleton disappears. Bone number 1 is found. Hero's cop wife leaves him. Why? Because hero cops' wives always leave him. It's expected. A terrible murder occurs. We have a dream sequence in the mind of the killer. The hero cop is now tormented. He goes home. He puts on NCIS. He gets really pissed off because they stole his ideas. Sorry, that's a personal note. But he opens a beer and he drinks too much. But the hero cop enlists the aid of an architect because he can't figure out how the killer is maneuvering through the medical center to hide these bones. And the architect gives him information, the history of architecture. That's all kind of interesting stuff. And then we look down at the next line, middle of book. Exciting stuff happens below that. End of book. Big surprise ending. And we keep working away, and then our eyes keep going back to the middle of book. Okay, there's a car chase, and then the detective's sidekick gets killed. We've never seen those happen before. And then there's a character who doesn't do anything, but he talks like he was on The Wire, and we just like it when people talk like that. And then we look down and we see middle of book, stuff happens about it. Big surprise ending. We keep staring at that big surprise ending, and you come to the realization that there is no big surprise ending. Why? Because sometimes there just isn't. But you come to an even more troubling conclusion, and that's this: that you've just spent the last 2 months working on a book that should not be written. No show of hands here, but who has ever read a book that should not have been written? Just because you have an idea in a word processor doesn't mean it should see the light of day. Why? Because it's probably liver. It's not mint. Now we see the value of outline. If I had sat down on June 1st with an idea, 206 bones, detective, and so forth, and started writing, in those 2 months I could have produced, as anyone here could have, 200, 300 pages of probably pretty solid prose. That wasn't going to go anywhere. And you come to the part where I did in the outline, and you see that gaping hole that was going to be the next part of the book, and the hole that would have been the ending if you'd ever been able to come up with something. And you would have had 2 options. One was to hack on a cliche-ridden middle and a tacky ending that looked like it had been tacked on. Or, number 1, or number 2, throw the whole thing out, which is the morally honest thing to do out of respect to your readers. I've done both of those, and neither of them are pleasant. With the outline, I wad up 10, 20, 30 pages at most, throw it away, and get started once more. Well, it's still rule one of business. I've wasted 2 months, but that's no excuse. We need a book. I have to produce that book. Now only 10 months to do it, but we can step up to the challenge. Start over from scratch. But if we picked anything up about what we were doing in the prior 2 months, I like the architect idea. That's kind of interesting. So how about this for a new idea? There's a terrorist architect who designs flaws into buildings so they collapse and kill innocent people. Maybe a week after they're finished, maybe 10 years after they're finished. But there's structural flaws he builds into the building, which is kind of an interesting concept. Okay, so now we've got our detective, our hero detective. He's tracking down this terrorist. Well, he brings on a good detective onto the case to track down the bad architect. So the detective gets the architect, good architect. Now we're going after the bad architect. Occasionally there's a building collapse. He saves some people, he doesn't save others. Now we start to see some big surprise endings. Surprise ending number one. In my case, that's usually like 6/8, or is that 3/4? I didn't do well in math. Way through the book. Wow, okay, guess what? The helpful architect appears to be the bad architect's roommate from college. They knew each other. Okay. Big surprise ending number two. The terrorist isn't a terrorist at all. He's working for a real estate cartel, trying to grab up the real estate when the buildings collapse. Surprise ending number three. The helpful architect, the good guy, and the bad architect are one and the same, because I've been messing with the points of views. Finally, surprise ending number four. It's not a real estate cartel at all. This one good/bad architect has ingratiated himself into the police so that he can get into the super prison next to police headquarters and break out of jail, the super uber assassin mentioned in one sentence in chapter 3, and he does this. And then our last line is the hero cop figures it out, and so, well, okay, is this the best novel ever written? No, but is it worthy? And I'm hiring him as an editor. But could it be turned into mint or cinnamon flavored toothpaste? I'll bet it could. Okay, now it's safe to say we've got the outline done. Now we can write the book. My outlines are typically 100 to 150 pages long. I know where every element of the plot is. I know where every character is introduced in the book. I know where they leave, either vertically or horizontally, because believe it or not, a fair number of people do not survive the endings of my books. I know where all the clues are seated in. That set up the legitimacy of those twists and turns, so that when you read that twist, you say, chapter 3, the terrorist, I should have remembered that. And a lot of what I do is sleight of hand. It's illusion. I give you a clue. I can't cheat. You get really upset when I cheat. But I can massage it so it looks like that clue serves double duty. Okay, now, the outline's done. Now is the easy and the fun part. You sit down and you write the book. Yes, it's safe to say we write the book now. I have the research material in front of me, the outline in front of me, bang, 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 out comes the book. I can write the whole book in about 2 months. And the outline is great because you can write the ending at the beginning or the middle, at the end, whenever you want. You know what you're going to write. You know, you wake up, it's a beautiful day, I was going to say the sun is shining, the birds are singing, well, not here. But it's just gorgeous, you're all happy, and you just wake up and you don't want to viciously slaughter somebody that day. Some of you didn't respond to that. Maybe you do want to viciously slaughter somebody every day. I just reserve that as a writer for when the cable guy tells me he's going to come at 7:30 in the morning. And I'm a writer, I don't get up at 7:30 for anybody but the cable guy. And he doesn't show up until 5:30 that afternoon. And then guess who the victim in the next book is? Joe, the cable guy.